guys, Destin DeMarion here. We just wrapped up our Lake Fork event. As expected, it was an amazing tournament as far as weights go. Really got to see some big fish caught, even got to see a 40-pound bag on the final day from Lee to win it. So congrats to Lee. That was, I mean, what an amazing week for him. That's like a once in a lifetime thing. I mean, that is such a cool experience. You know, the tournament for me was a little bit tougher. I kind of anticipated bed fishing after practice. I tried to get on some shad spawn and things like that. You know, the swim bait bite, the top water bite, which I did catch a couple fish on it, but I never could get on anything consistent with that. So I did pretty much commit to the bed fishing thing. Did get some bites on a frog too, which I did play a little bit too, as well, but the bed fishing was my primary strategy. The first day I was there, I found a ton of bed fish, a lot of ones that are pretty eager to bite. Didn't really stick them as you shouldn't in practice all the time. Day two was pretty good too. I found quite a few and got some other bites just fishing as well. And then day three, I found not a ton of fish, but the right ones. They were starting to pool up more throughout the day, and you know, it was crazy. I was like, wow, this is going to be a great tournament. You know, the fish are pulling up. We've got a lot of big ones marked, and you know, the conditions for our tournament didn't really line up extremely well for sight fishing, unfortunately. I was able to scrape up like 16.5 pounds the first day. Probably had eight or nine keeper bites throughout the day. I was only able to put 5 or 6 of them in the boat the first day, unfortunately. And then day two, I think I had probably about six or 7 bites, and was able to put almost all of them in the boat. Made a little adjustment. Day one, I was getting a lot of bites on a spinning rod, which I hadn't really thrown much. I was flipping a lot to these beds because it was a lot easier with a single hook. Something like this. This has got a, I was using like a lightweight, so like a 3/16 to a 5/16 angler tungsten. This is a no chip weight right here. Pegged it, then I would have an owner J hook and like a 4/0 variety, and then I was throwing anything from like a rage bug, tube, all kinds of different stuff. Just things that are gonna mimic like a bluegill, something that a bass is not like around their bed this time of year. And the thing about it is they really don't necessarily want to feed. It's more of a defensive position when they're on a bed. You've got to really tick them off to make them bite. And all they're going to do is pick the bait up and start swimming out of the bed and spit it out, which is really just to get it out of their way. It's just more of a defensive, protecting those eggs. So that was something that I was doing a lot in practice. I was throwing that on like 20-pound gamma edge. You really needed some heavy line to wrench these fish out of these places. I was throwing it on a Cash 7.6 Elite. This one was a heavy, extra fast, or actually this one's just fast, but great flipping stick, really lightweight, easy for pitching all day. But in the tournament, I had to adjust and use this spinning rod. So I was using the Cash Icon series, a 7-foot medium, fast action. Great sensitive rod. I really like this rod for the what I was doing with it. I was throwing a wacky rig, which is really good around the spawn, post-spawn, pre-spawn time when those fish are kind of up shallow. This was a 5-inch General. This was a green pumpkin candy, I believe, and I was throwing it on an owner jungle wacky hook, a 1/0 variety. I was throwing that on a 10-pound gamma torque with a 10-pound gamma edge leader. And a lot of times I would go in areas where people would just fish, so you're always fishing behind someone. I felt like at Lake Fork. I would go behind people, and you know, I wasn't necessarily worried about it because you could throw something more finessey on these beds after they'd gotten beaten up so bad that most of the time, if I was around a fish that was on a bed and he was locked, even if I didn't see him, which I couldn't really well the first day or the second day, I would skip this up there, and I'd get it in the right position on the bed, and the fish would just have it and start swimming away with it. So I was able to catch majority of the fish in the tournament on that. I did catch some on the the other flipping setup. I did throw the same bait on that flipping setup too. I caught my biggest fish day 2 on it. Actually, I had to make a little adjustment because a lot of these fish were short striking. I ended up putting a trailer hook on my owner J hook, Texas rigging it back into the bait, so there wasn't much bait without a hook. Because a lot of times these fish would get a little smart and they'd pick up the back of the bait, so then they would not get hooked. So that was a big adjustment day 2 that I made. That really helped. And then day 2, I also picked up this frog. This is a tackle sprinkler frog. I was throwing this on the 7.4 heavy fast Icon series cash and rod, throwing it on 50-pound braid on like a high gear speed, high like ratio reel, high gear. And I was throwing this around like these bedding areas. So whether those fish are on a bed or if they were kind of like just pre-spawn, post-spawn, kind of moving in and out, I feel like I was able to catch some of those fish in all different stages. A lot of fish will stick around the bedding areas after they've spawned, and they'll guard the balls of fry, which the fry is the baby fish after they hatch out the eggs. They're called a fry. Then it gets a little bit bigger, then it's a fingerling, and then it becomes, a mature fish. So a lot of times you would catch these fry guarders on a frog. I was using a tackle sprinkler. There's also that shad spawn going on, so that also mimics kind of that as well, because it's got like a plopper style tail on there, so it's going to create a little bit of disturbance, kind of imitate those shad flickering on the surface and spawning against grass edges and things like that. So that caught me a couple fish day 2. Actually, one of the fry guarders I knew was hanging around. First place I went, I caught that one. And day 2 was much cloudier, windier. It was a little bit more challenging. I feel like the weights definitely went down across the board. I was able to scrounge up the limit. I just ended up missing the cut by a few spots, unfortunately, which I was disappointed. But I mean, I did everything I could. I worked as hard as I could, and I don't have any regrets per se. So sometimes it's just not your tournament. I got out of Texas with 2 middle of the pack finishes, which honestly, it's good momentum. It's better momentum than we're working, building out of that beginning start of the season, which I'm definitely not happy with. But I'm just going back to the fundamentals and really focusing on catching 5 fish and just trusting my instincts and making good decisions. And I think we're back on track in that regard. And we still got half a season left. I mean, there's a lot of time. We're going up north. We've got 2 more in Alabama coming up in Neely Henry and Gunnersville. We've got the Northern Open, the James River coming up too. And then we head up north for the 2 remaining Elite Series events up there at Champlain and Thousand Islands. And then I've got the 2 other Northern Opens in New York at Oneida Lake and Thousand Islands. So we've got plenty of time, guys. And I'm really excited for the rest of the season. We've got a lot of time still to go fish and chase these big green, brown, and spotted bass. So I'm excited, and I look forward to the Neely Henry event and having a lot more good stuff to talk about.